welcome back to On the Porch. This video is a continuation on the traumatic experiences of a Black woman. In the second part of the series, I want to talk about the traumatic experience of a few significant women during the Civil Rights Movement. First, I'm going to start off with Gwendolyn Zoharah Simmons, an American civil rights activist. During the Civil Rights Movement, Ms. Simmons was a field director for the Mississippi Freedom Summer Project and a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the SNCC. She helped coordinate the lunch counter sit-ins during the early 1960s. She was arrested twice for her participation in the sit-ins, which led to her scholarship being revoked by the president at Spelman University. Student demonstrators rallied in front of the president's house for Simmons to be allowed to remain at Spelman. The president reversed his decision and Simmons was allowed back but was on strict probation. She later volunteered with the Mississippi Summer Project, which Spelman administrators feared for her life because the project was held in areas of the Ku Klux Klan. Simmons remembers her male colleagues getting the best selections of cars and resources for their travels, which left women to travel by bus or finding other resources to travel. She faced sexual harassment and violence by her male colleagues, which led to her immediately creating an anti-sexual harassment policy within the committee. While working in Laurel, Mississippi for 18 months, Ms. Simmons decided to return to Atlanta. She was psychologically scarred by the violence she had witnessed by the Ku Klux Klan. She had to take a much-needed break from activism. She returned to the SNCCC Atlanta Project a year later. Ruby Nail Sales is a social justice activist, scholar, and public theologian. Ms. Sales attended local segregated schools, including Carver High School, and was also educated in the community during the 1960s era of the Civil Rights Movement. After graduating from high school, she attended Tuskegee Institute, where she became involved in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, at the age of 17. She marched in the Selma to Montgomery marches of 1965. In the summer of 1965, Sales left Tuskegee to work full-time as a voter registration organizer as part of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. SNCC assigned her to Calhoun County, Alabama. Students in Fort Deposit, a small town in Lowndes County, asked SNCC for its support in a demonstration aimed at protesting the local store owners' treatment toward their sharecroppers' parents. The SNCC organization sent members from various counties to join their cause. Sales was one of the 30 people who supported and took part in the demonstration on August 14, 1965. Ms. Sales acknowledged that she and other members of the group were scared by the violence and intimidation. Many members of the group were arrested and taken to the county seat of Haynesville. After being jailed for 6 days, the group was suddenly released. There was no one available to pick up the demonstrators. She and a few members of the group decided to walk to a nearby store to get something to drink. The group were threatened by a shotgun-wielding special appointed deputy named Tom Coleman. Jonathan Daniels, a fellow demonstrator, pushed Ruby out of the way and took the shot meant for her, dying instantly. Jonathan Daniels was a 1961 white male graduate from Virginia Military Institute and valedictorian of his class at Episcopal Theological School in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It is stated that Miss Sales was so traumatized by Daniels' murder that she nearly lost the ability to speak for the next 7 months. Despite all of the death threats made to her and her family, she testified at Thomas Coleman's trial. He was acquitted by an all-male jury of 12. Ms. Ruby Sales, Ms. Gwendolyn Simmons' horrific and traumatic experiences of racial discrimination is a testament of Black women's courage and determination during the Civil Rights Movement. Continuing with the movement, I would like to talk about a special little girl named Ruby Bridge. She was one of the 6 Black kids who had to pass a test to gain access to an all-white school. Ruby's mother advocated for her to attend an all-white school because neither of her parents had formal education. They both grew up as sharecroppers in a rural area of Mississippi.
And my parents, both of them, were sharecroppers from a little tiny town in Mississippi. And being educated was a luxury for them. If it was time for them to get the crops in, they couldn't go to school.
Ruby, a 6-year-old girl who had to be escorted by U.S. Marshals on her first day of school at William Frantz Elementary. She had to be escorted because of the large mob of protesters who disagreed with desegregation of an all-white school. The mob was a mix of white adult men, women, and children. They spewed hatred, vile, racial slurs at Ruby. Just imagine the experience of this little girl walking into the school, hearing grown women and men lashing out racial slurs at her. She is surrounded by people who hate her only because of the color of her skin. I am sure this was very confusing for her at this age. As she approaches her classroom, she learns no other kids will be joining her, especially white kids.
Where is everybody?
Well, they're still lost, I think.
Several teachers have refused to teach her. There was only one woman, Miss Barbara Henry, a teacher from Boston, who was willing to teach Ruby. The trauma continued as Ruby's family suffered losing their job because of her attendance at an all-white school. Her mother lost her job as a domestic worker, and her father lost his job as a service station attendant. The local corner store refused service to them. Her grandparents were forced to leave their farm in Mississippi due to threats. Carrying the blame for her parents losing their jobs, her grandparents being forced to move, and later the devastating news of her parents' divorce is a lot on a child at that age. Ruby stated she had nightmares of the coffin flying around in her dreams. Her mother had to pack her lunch in fear of her being poisoned. After a year had passed and people began to accept school integration, she was allowed to be in the classroom with other white kids. She recounts a white kid telling her his parents advised him not to talk or play with her because she was a nigger.
Hi.
Hey,
Can I play with you?
my mom says I can't because you're a nigger.
Another trauma endured. Witnessing such visual hate from grown adults is appalling. I would never understand how a person can formulate such hatred and anger towards a child. Shirley Chisholm, born in Brooklyn, New York on November 30th, 1924. She is Afro-Guyanese, Barbadian descent. Her father was born in British Guiana. Her mother was born in Christchurch, Barbados. At the age of 5, she lived with her grandmother in Barbados, who instilled in her strength, dignity, and love. She returned to the U.S. at the age of 10, arriving in New York on May 19, 1934. She considered herself as a Barbadian American because of her West Indian accent. Shirley did well academically as she attended an all-girls school in 1939. She later was offered a scholarship to Vassar College and Oberlin College. Due to the high cost of room and board, she selected to go to Brooklyn College. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in 1946. She was a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority and Harriet Tubman Society. She married Conrad Chisholm in 1949. He was a private investigator who specialized in negligence-based lawsuits. She entered politics in 1953. Shirley became the first Black woman to be elected to Congress in 1968. Her first year, the Speaker of the House assigned her to serve on the House of Agriculture Committee, which she felt insulted by her assignment. From that assignment, she used the surplus food to expand the food stamp program and created a special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children called the WIC program today. Shirley stated she faced discrimination for being a woman during her New York legislative career more so than her race. She later ran for president in January 1972. She was the first woman to run for the Democratic Party presidential nomination, the first African American to run for a major party's nomination for president of the United States. Her campaign was underfunded. She received little support from her Congressional Black Caucus colleagues. She was considered the Black matriarch, and she felt Black women should not have to step back in order for Black men to step forward. She did not have the security as she received death threats.
Fools of themselves.
See too much suffering.
Which U.S. Secret Service was then provided in May of 1972. As one of the founding members of the Congressional Black Caucus and the only woman in the group, people oftentimes talk about having a seat at the table. Having a seat at the table does not always mean people will support you. It does not mean they will hear you as opposed to listening to you. Sometimes these spaces are just checking off the box. It allows them to say, "We heard you, and there is someone here that looks like you." Although people may think this might not be a traumatic experience, looking at all of her accomplishments, she still faced discrimination. Her life was threatened while campaigning, and the disadvantages and lack of support she received as being the only woman in the Congressional Black Caucus. It's astounding to see some men threatened by the accomplishments of a Black woman. Women should be supported, protected, and uplifted. There are so many women during the Civil Rights Movement who faced traumatic experiences that made it through and those that did not. I honor all of those women who protested and fought for our civil rights with love and non-violence. Even though violence was not spared on them, they are all phenomenal women. Thank you for joining me on the porch. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I'll see you on the porch.